For this assignment, we're going to start to think about ideas for your clay container. So the first thing you need to think about is, what is a container? If you look up the definition for a container, it's usually marked as something that can hold something inside of it, usually used for storage or transportation. Okay, like a shipping container or something along that line. So I want you to think about things that are maybe 5 or 6 inches big that would count as a container. You might think of things like a bowl or a cup or a box. You might think of specific things like something that holds change, like a bank, a jewelry box. There are many different things, and hopefully we've come up with some of them as a class if you're starting this after the class starts it. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start to come up with at least 4 different ideas. So I'm either working on a piece of paper, and if I'm working on a loose piece of paper, I'm going to make sure that I put my name, homeroom number, and period on that piece of paper. If I am working in my folder, I don't need to add that information. So for example, I could work on the back of this. I could split this in half and in half again. And again, you're going to come up with 4 different ideas. When you come up with those 4 ideas, there's going to be 2 parts for each one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of put 2 little bullet points for each one. So for example, maybe for this first one, I'm trying to come up with an idea that is a box. Maybe for this second one, it's going to be a cup. Maybe this third one, maybe I really want a box. So maybe I'm going to come up with more than one idea for a box. And this last one, maybe I'm coming up with an idea for a recipe box. So maybe it's very specific, or it can be a lot more general. Then the second part is you need to come up with what's it going to look like. So there's going to be 4 different categories that you can come up with. One is that it's in the shape of another object. That's one way that you can work on it. Next way is that it's using a theme, like maybe it's all about sewing, maybe it's all about a specific sport, maybe it's all about nature. So a theme. A design, so thinking more like shapes and lines and thinking about repetition. And then the last type of specific thing that you can do is add some type of picture somewhere onto the container. So those are your 4 choices. So now I'm going to start to think about those containers, and I'm going to think, okay, what do I want to do? So maybe this box is going to have a design, and maybe this design is mostly made up of straight lines. So I'm going to write straight lines and circles. Okay. Once I have figured out what those 2 parts are, now I need you to show it. You might need to show it to me in more than one way because I might not be able to see what those different parts are going to look like. So right now I'm kind of showing like a side view, and then I'm thinking that this box would have a lid. So I'm maybe showing what the top of that lid is. I might even, make one of these pieces, if the back is different than the front, what might that back edge look like and where is that located at? So first I'm showing how is it this container? How is it a box in this particular case? Then I'm thinking, okay, what does this design look like? So I had mentioned straight lines and circles. So maybe I'm starting to place straight lines and circles together. How is that going to work together as an overall design? Maybe I'm going to make some of these where it kind of looks like half of a circle, and maybe that half of a circle is going to go down onto the side of this box. Maybe this design is going to follow over the edge, and maybe it's going to go over on this edge as well. Maybe this piece is going to continue down the side of the box, and again, maybe I'm using that repetition to help show that design. Most of your designs, if you're picking that one, you're going to use some type of repetition to show that idea. So the next one, maybe I'm doing a cup, and maybe this time I'm showing a theme, and maybe I'm doing something that goes with sewing, because that's something off my top 10 list. So you might go back to that top 10 list yet again as you're thinking and working. So when I think of sewing, I think of stitching, I think of fabric, and I think of some different pieces. So maybe I'm starting to think, okay, what would the overall cup shape look like? And then maybe I'm thinking, instead of like a regular handle, maybe it's pieces that kind of come together here at the side. And maybe it even looks like something is kind of placed over top and is connected together. Maybe I'm adding that stitching idea with the overall piece. Maybe there's some parts that look like they're stitched and kind of overlapped. So maybe this piece is going to overlap with the side. I might need to show, what is the back of that cup going to look like? Okay, I would continue to show that completed idea. Not quite done yet, but I can go back onto that overall piece and come up with that idea. Maybe my next one, this one, maybe I'm showing a box, and maybe I'm showing a picture on the top of the box, and now I need to think, what kind of shape is that box going to be? And so overall, maybe it's going to be a circular box. Maybe it's going to be a jewelry box. I don't know. Maybe this is going to have some different pieces down inside of it. And as I'm thinking about this box, maybe my picture is like a hex sign, okay? Because my heritage is Pennsylvania Dutch, and there's something that I see on barns that are in the area. And maybe I'm looking at a specific image of a Pennsylvania Dutch hex sign, or maybe I'm making something that's all of my own, but it's very similar to that overall idea of a Pennsylvania Dutch hex sign. Maybe I'm going to add some of those littler details. Maybe I'm even going to add a picture of mountains or something in this middle section to go along with it. Last one, maybe I'm doing a recipe box, and maybe I'm doing this in the shape of another object. So these are your 4 different pieces: theme, design, picture, or object. Now I could do 2 that are in the shape of another object. So this one I'm going to make a stove. And maybe I'm going to make this as a recipe box, and I'm going to make the overall piece look like an actual stove in this case. And maybe this top part, would come off of the overall piece. So what I'm going to show you now, this is one example. Here's another example that I had done with another class. You can see some of the same ideas starting to happen. Here I have a picture of a beach on the top of a box. Here I have a tree that's in the shape of a bowl that the 2 pieces come together. Here I have a design on top of the box.